I myself had gone through a huge shift. It started when I met John of God and started having very experiences that, I think my older self, maybe 15 years ago, will say I'm crazy. Things that I started appearing, or visions I started having, so dreams that, I knew was important, but I didn't understand what they were. I would like to just, get your advice, especially for those who are listening. If they're starting to have experiences like that, what could they do, or what kind of guidance you could give them?
Well, as I was coming up my path and Spirit was growing me, I also went through a big awakening, and all of a sudden I had all these experiences like you're describing. And I was a girl brought up in the South. And so these kind of experiences were not what you wanted to share with people around. They were crazy, or it was this, or it was that, or it was of the devil, all these things, negative kind of connotations around it. So I kept things private. I was a little girl when I was a little bitty girl. I had these experiences all the time, and I thought they were just kind of what everybody had, till I started to try to tell people about it, and then I got in trouble. I got sent to my room for exaggerating. Many of us have been through this kind of thing. So as I was coming up my trail, and during and after my awakening process that went on for 13 years, I ended up becoming the director of the Spiritual Emergence Network. So then I got to go all over around the planet and help to set systems up that would help people understand when they were crazy, having those psychotic kind of breaks, versus when they were having a spiritual awakening and they were emerging. And if you look in all the spiritual literature, you can see where this happened. Jesus went to the desert and sat for 40 days. Buddha sat at his tree for 40 days, where they went through a big test with the ego and with the demons of the mind, if you will, with those illusionary kinds of energies that want to distract us or keep us from being original. And so there's a book called Spiritual Emergency by Stanislav Grof that you can go to if you're having those kinds of experiences. There are actually 10 different kinds of typologies within that understanding. I was able to while I was the director, we had 3 doctors that ended up getting spiritual emergence included in the DSM-4, which is like the kind of the healing Bible for hospitals and insurances and practitioners. And we were able to get included that spiritual emergence was not a psychosis, but they called it having spiritual problems. So what that meant was that people I had met that had gone through a spiritual emergence and for whatever reason ended up in hospitals getting shock therapy when they should have been being cared for at home and taken care of, so that we could just let them work the process. When people are going through that kind of a big opening, they're not just doing it for themselves, they're also doing it for all their family. There's a whole generational line that's being opened when that person opens and becomes really activated as the mystic that they are. So it's not an easy thing, mainly because of our culture. Our culture has shut the door on these kinds of things. The culture shut the door on our indigenous and called them unintelligible and heathen, when they had very sophisticated cosmology and teachings and spiritual lessons that they lived their lives by. We've done that kind of assuming in many other cultures that had more the deep feminine mystical side of nature. If you go back in the churches, if you go back beyond the structure of the churches, then you're going to see most of them all have a mystical origin. And so these mystical experiences that we call strange or otherworldly, they're really part of who we are. They're our nature. They're not unnatural, they're natural. So when our Dharma is bringing us towards our work in the world, it will bring you then into these kind of circles. Even if your Dharma was like this young man that I mentioned that ended up in a hospital with talk therapy. I met him later when I was the director of the Spiritual Emergence Network. And he had survived. He learned how to get out of that system by realizing he had to play a certain game. Now, this was an ego that was supposed to be damaged, but he did get out of it. And when I met him, he was getting his doctorate in psychology, so he could go back to that hospital and teach those people the difference between a spiritual happening and a psychotic one. When most people say to me, "Jyoti, I think I'm going crazy," well, I'll say immediately, well, if you think you're going crazy, then you're not going crazy, because people that are really in a psychosis don't think they're crazy. So it's really about your wake-up call is also awakening the original coding in your system that is mystical in its nature and has different perception than what's been closed up around us to keep us from that nature. And the things that will fall off are the false things that were put on us to keep us from that nature. And it's kind of like the 10th monkey story. When enough of us have woken up and shook that old construct off, then we will be in world change. So guess what? We're in world change. So guess what? That means enough of us woke up and shook off all the old false constructs, and we're returning to our nature. There are things you can do when you're going through that. It depends on what's going on. So I don't want to give a formula that works for everybody, because when you're going through this, it's important to reach out, like to Rain. People that have had training, that have an understanding, that have gone through the awakening themselves is really important, because then they have a sensitivity to the birthing process, because you're literally birthing yourself into being. That's what's happening. And birth isn't clean. Birth is messy, So be patient with yourself would be the thing I would like my grandma self wants to say to you. Be patient with yourself, my darling. Take some time. Trust yourself. Circle up with those that you know can hold you in the moments when it feels the scariest, because it's something you don't know. But I will tell you this from my own personal story of my awakening, and others, many, many hundreds, thousands of others I've sat with at this time in my life, is that you can trust your process. When it's happening, most always, even though it's hard or it's painful or it's this or it's that, there's something really deep inside of you that knows it's right. There's something that you're already starting to connect to that knows this is important, what's happening to me right now. And you value it differently. You come over the years of walking with it, you come to trust your life again. You come to trust yourself again. You come to ride in your own soul boat, if you will. And that's a returning. And that's what we're doing as an entire creation is returning right now. So most important, have some elder or someone that's done that walk that you can turn to, that you trust is going to be a good mirror for you to get good feedback from. Maybe a couple of them, and not to compare them, but to see, oh, this one sees this and this one sees this, but there's a universal message inside of it. And that universal message, that's the place to stand. It's got more firm ground under it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I love that you gave the distinction. You're not crazy. If you think you're crazy, you're not, because the crazy ones never think they're crazy. So that's a great distinction, because I remember when I first started too, and again, it's like you said, all the stuff that we've grown up to believe or think it's okay and not okay. And when I started having those experiences, I there are times I'm like, oh my God, what is going on, right? And yeah, and I'm grateful that I have you to lean into and the community, because I've done the ministry of walking prayer. Now I'm a minister, and I remember the 2 years, when you first guided me, have a look at that, and I remember, okay, I'll just have to go online and check out the program. And one thing I've learned about myself is when I know it's for me, I make a decision really quickly, like the knowing that you were talking about, and I sign up for it, and oh my God, the 2 years, my life, like just, peeling off a lot of stuff that I used to believe and really embracing that, yeah, the more mystical side of me. And, I have no words can describe how profound my experience was that 2 years. I went in not because I wanted to be a reverend. I went in because I was just going through all these experiences and wanted to understand all these experiences that I was going through. I remember at our retreat, I said that I feel like I'm a misfit, because I have this entrepreneurial background, and then now I'm moving to this whole spiritual side. But now, I can see why Spirit has guided and embraced all of that. So I would love if you could, because I know if you could talk a little bit about the Center for Sacred Studies and a little bit also what, the school offer, because that's the community I leaned into, that I'm grateful I get to lean into to get my support, and also about the ministerial program that is available.
Well, all of this started when I was sitting in a hot tub one day, and it was the best hot tub ever because it was in this fairy ring of redwoods. So it's like my cathedral. Every morning, that's how I started my day. I went out there and sat in this hot tub. And one morning I'm out there, and my life was I was already the director of the Spiritual Emergence Network. I already had a full practice with 3 offices in the Bay Area. I was quite full on my plate. And she said, "You're going to start Stargate." And I said, "I beg your pardon?" Because the mother has this way of downloading, if you will, what I call her archetypal formulas. And those archetypal formulas are what she puts individuals through to help in their cooking, to help in their purification process, to help in their awakening processes. And the way she gave me this Stargate was that it was the steps to take vision into manifestation. And they were supposed to happen every other month over a 10-month period. And there were 5 steps. Each step that weekend, we would focalize around what the teachings of that step were about. That was part of the alchemy. Then you need the 6 weeks in between to really integrate what that brought up and then take the second step. So it went from preparation to purification, to initiation, to integration, to actualization. Those were the 5 steps. And so that grew into a school called the Stargate Mystery School, which is in its full 5-year original template in Prague, where one of our communities are. It's still over there operating it's still helping to fuel and feed the community, and it's still helping to awaken people. So Stargate was one of the first tools she gave us. She also gave us Maya tree breath work, which we also have training in. And the Maya tree comes from the Buddhist words, and it means to embrace all of oneself in a friendly way. So it's a mediumistic way of healing and prayer. And it's, I've seen amazing miracles with people's healing take place through Maya tree. So it's interwove through all of this. And then as I mentioned earlier in our last interview, that there was a moment when we needed to become a church in order to protect these earth-based ways of prayer, and we needed a ministry. And people had been wanting me to do an online teachings of some kind way before online was so fluid like it is now. Especially since the coronavirus, we've become a Zoom community everywhere. But in any case, I didn't know. I mean, back in those days, if I walked in the office, they didn't want me touching computers because they'd all go clicker, clicker and do crazy things. So me I thought, I'm in the wrong line, you know. I don't know how to create a computer program for ministry, and how can I do that where it's alchemical in its process? And I resisted it. I had my own resistance around it, and the mother has her own timing, so she lets me do my little resistance dance. And then at a certain point she says, daughter, and she has that voice, and I hear it. Uh-oh, means got to do it now. And then I'm devotee, so we put it in motion. So just about that time when she got that voice, all of a sudden Wendy and myself and Darlene said, we got to sit down, we got to catch the bones of this. And it started to download and give us how we could do this online program. And then programmers showed up and helped us figure out how to put it online. And so it went. And when we offered it the first time, we let people know this was our beginning. And I was wondering, would it be alchemical for people? And what that means is that when it's alchemical, it allows everybody at whatever level they're living in their consciousness to sit in the same circle, and everybody gets what they need, because it's dealing with the base ingredients of who we are, to stir the soup, if you will, and bring the purity of itself forward. And after the first year, we had such strong feedback, and I could see the development of the people. I'm assisting them through that process, so I could feel their development occurring, and I knew, aha, it works. It does work. How interesting. Because before that, I thought, how can I pass things that I carry without being one-on-one and through the transmission, which is how I used to do this work. Now it grew itself differently. So that became our ministry. It's a ministry where you can do it online. And we have a different teaching model every month. You also have an elder brother or sister, someone that's been through the program that wants to assist you. You also have a mentor, someone that can come and really help you if you have things going on, or issues that are kind of coming out of the breaking up moment is breaking through. And we can help you with that. And everybody's very, very individual at this stage of development. So we want to keep it that way. So we really tried to rally everything, because alchemy also has to include and activate all the 5 senses. It has to activate everything within your system to work for yourself. And so at the end of the month, you have also a time with your teacher for that month, where you have calls, and you give a paper at the end, which is really not like a paper, intellectual paper. It's more a process about, we want to know that you caught the concept that was being presented in that module that week, and you can give us back what that meat concept has taught you. So that's how it moves. And then once a year, we have a retreat where everybody comes together, and there are certain ceremonial things that we need to do to really help the alchemy of that process as well. And it's a 2-year program. So those are some of the tools that we have. We have many more in our basket. So it's really, if you're feeling the call, we haven't done a lot of advertising about any of these things I've talked about. People have just found themselves to be with us when it was that time, and the tool would help them and assist them in their awakening process. So thank you for asking. And we always love to collaborate with everyone. And most people that are coming and are drawn towards our work are also very connected to this creation and the earth and life here, and really want to be in service in some fashion or another. And that can take many, many different forms. So we applaud your individuation, your own expression of who you are, and your own authenticity.
Thank you so much for sharing. And for those who are listening to, I've experienced Maitri breathwork. It's amazing. And I've experienced many different kinds of breathwork, but by far, Maitri at the moment is my favorite. And I know I've reached out and say, I want to learn, Maitri breathwork myself to facilitate. Also for those who are listening, you might think that online, how could it work? My God, again, it's the process, it's just magical. There's no words to explain. Every month, I know the depth of the work that I've experienced, and just profound knowing and connection to mother, just all the different topics. I remember every month was just, no words can describe my experience. And it works, it really works. And I'm really grateful again to have found you and to have found a community and to be given the opportunity to experience it myself. And I remember at the end of my ordination, the message that you gave me, and it finally landed on me. Now I could take this and continue to share, what the work is all about. It finally landed just the day when I was ordained. So again, I am, eternally grateful for your guidance, for your wisdom, for your support. You're someone that I can always go to when I have, I don't understand something, that I can call out to. I'm going through my own crisis. And before we end, I would like to just ask you if there's anything you kind of want to share with the ones who are listening or watching right now. Any final words that you want to share with them?
I just want to say thank you for listening today. And I really want to thank you, Rain, for listening, period. Because that's what I get to witness as people awaken. They begin to listen, and you're listening to that inner voice, that inner knowing that's taking you somewhere, and you've given up the need to know even where it's taking you, and you've come to understand that the work is not in where we're going or where we're going to get to. It's in the journey itself. And it brings amazing people to sit together and share like we've done today. And it brings communities together to collaborate and to share the gifts that each community has percolated up something a little bit different than the other. We all have our own season. The mother said early on when we started growing our community, she said, every one of you is an herb in my garden. Your job, fully potentiate the herb. Then I will decide what soup I'm cooking where and what herb needs to go in the soup. So that took all that big heavy thing of what am I going to do and what am I going to be and all that. It just took it all away, and it just let me work on being my full herb. And now she's got me in some soups cooking. So enjoy the soup.
We're just like doing the videos right now. I was resistant for a while, but now it's like, okay, this is the instruction. I'm just going to do the videos and we see where it goes. So again, thank you for your acknowledgement, and thank you for your love. I think for your generosity in your heart, your light, it definitely played a huge role in my life. And
as you have in mine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being on our show. Thank you for being on the RainHeartWisdom show, for sharing your heart and your wisdom with us today.
My pleasure always. Thank you for yours.
Oh.